So right away people are going to say, hey, why do you want to kill off PCs? All Dark Souls is about is players getting killed. So a week ago, I would have been right there with you. So please bear with me for a couple minutes while I explain this. Dark Souls was heavily inspired by D&D. At its core, D&D 5e is just as deadly and as fair as Dark Souls is. Honestly, it's way more fair to the PCs because as smooth as Dark Souls combat can be at times, D&D 5e rewards creative playing to an extent that a video game can never do. So for a specific example, let's talk about dragons for a second. A popular YouTuber recently did a video decrying 5e dragons as boring because they didn't do enough. So let's take a look how Dark Souls handles a dragon. A drake, actually. Nobody encounters this monster and thought, oh, this is some boring stuff. It was consistently a very memorable part of the game for pretty much every player. And all this drake does is three primary things. It flies, it breathes fire, and it smashes you with its claws before flying away and breathing fire again. So why isn't this dragon boring? It only does three things. Isn't that too few things? Isn't that too little? Well, it's because the game sets up this encounter really well. You first get a quick glance of it, and then the next time you see it, it engulfs a group of enemies in fire, and if you aren't on the ball, you're going to take some damage or even die as well. And then if you even manage to sneak past it, you can hear it moving and making noise like the huge creature it is. It's a very terrifying thing. And this dragon fights like a dragon should. It takes advantage of its flying to avoid a head-on fight, and it just sits there, waiting for a character to move in where the player character's mobility isn't going to be an advantage. To get past this, you either got to avoid a fight until you get stronger, or you can kind of cheat your way into getting a drop by using some devious tactics and shady advice. Basically, like the sort of D&D encounter I enjoy. So D&D dragons can do way more than this Hellkite dragon can do in terms of gameplay mechanics. So why would anybody say that a D&D 5e dragon is boring? Well, I would assume that person wants to run a dragon more like World of Warcraft. To me, that means artificially extending the battle, different boss states, using things like minions that serve no other purpose but to extend the time it takes to fight somebody and make the player seem artificially more powerful than they actually are. And if you combine these things, you get to the point where battles take hours. Sound familiar? 4E practically was World of Warcraft in terms of using strategies like that. And frankly, there are many other board games based on tactics that are much funner to play if you want to do a game that's based solely on tactical combat. 5e is simply not compatible with tactics like that. 5e is not compatible with strategies like that. Combat is short and deadly for both monsters and PCs. Now, at this point, you might be saying, Dark Souls can waste time while players figure out how to play the game and not let the game play them. And yes, it sometimes takes a while for players to understand that they can't run right up to a dragon and expect it to hit it while it just stands there and dies. Because too many DMs run dragons, where they just let the players run up to the dragon and hit them until it dies. Basically, what I'm saying is that a DM who understands the basics of 5e can make that learning curve very easy for players to get over, much easier than the learning curve in Dark Souls. By using creativity and teamwork, which D&D encourages with several mechanics, PCs can understand how dangerous a dragon can be, but manage to overcome it and get a sense of accomplishment, and have a lot of fun messing around with their friends while doing it. So it's almost like D&D 5e takes the best aspects of two very different video games and puts it together in one package. DMs out there, I really want you to embrace what Wizards of the Coast is doing with this edition of the game. Don't try to change it right off the bat because it seems simple or boring. Because if you set the mood and reward smart, creative players that use teamwork, it will work. One last little example. Finding a two-handed sword in Dark Souls. To people who didn't play the game, that would seem like a normal whatever item. But finding a two-handed sword in Dark Souls is actually a very cool discovery that means something. And more importantly, they didn't put this sword right out in the open where players could get it easily. Rather, they put this sword in the beginning of the game, but players would have to be creative, persistent, and sneaky to overcome the odds to get it. In my opinion, that is way more entertaining than just handing a player a magical weapon just because of story reasons. And I believe that a game of D&D like that would encourage lots of different people to play. And that's what I'm really hoping 2017 will be. A year where many more people will figure out that D&D really scratches that itch of both creative play and challenging play. Let me know what you think of this in the comments.